And the game award goes to, oh man, I have to pay a microtransaction to unlock.
Progression system that entirely revolves around what are essentially glorified slot machines.
Electronic Arts COO Peter Moore has responded to a recent poll in which EA was chosen as a semi-finalist for, quote, worst company in America.
Electronic Arts being sued by 2 lawyers in France because of their shady business practices with FIFA 20.
So breaking news this weekend, I'm hearing reports that 28% of EA's net revenue in 2018 was solely from FIFA's Ultimate Team.
Microtransactions.
It's so much money.
So this is the story of how I spent nearly £3,000 on FIFA packs. It was money that was saved by my parents, by my grandparents, my future, and I'm never going to get it back. It happened during the most difficult time that I will hopefully ever go through in my personal life. And I had a family member with cancer. I was searching for ways to cope. And yeah, I'm ready to talk about it now.
Here on the channel, you'll know Johnny P as a regular staple in our entertaining Pro Club Series videos. When Johnny was 17, he was going through a load of stuff. And in that time, he spent £3,000, all the money saved by his parents that could have been used to spend on a car, or all of his university spending money on FIFA packs to cope with the situation at home. Johnny is just one of thousands of you who have reached out to me about these issues. Throughout this video, your stories, the people who reached out to me privately to tell me how much they've spent on this game, the victims of EA Sports pack system, will be displayed on screen, so you can pause it and read through if you want to, if they're a little bit longer. Don't forget, there are no restrictions on the amount you can spend on packs. There are no warnings to gamble aware or safely. There are no public records of the pack weight of any of the players. You do not know the percentage chance of getting these players. EA Sports has complete control over this, and as recently as yesterday, for an SBC, has manipulated the pack weight in different ways, much to the outrage of the community. If this hits home to you, or you feel like somebody needs to hear this message, send them the video. It's important, because you will know somebody. And a lot of people might joke around on my Twitter and tag their mates and say, oh, you've got this spending problem, but for a lot of people it's real. They will get addicted to this. It is gambling. So if you're somebody sat there right now who might have spent a little bit too much money on FIFA packs, just know that you're not alone. Johnny P's going to share his story with you. Hopefully this story hits home to a few of you and can resonate with some of you who might need to hear it, who have maybe done similar. This is a serious problem. EA Sports are disgusting for what they're doing with this pack system and their loot crate system, and let's just listen to Johnny's story of how he spent £3,000 at 17 years old whilst his mum was battling cancer and he had other issues going on in the house. Okay, so I'm here with Johnny. I'm just going to let him tell his story properly. So Johnny P, mate, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
So I played FIFA since I was like 8 years old, in 2006 roughly. It was the first video game that I ever fell in love with. I used to head downstairs on weekends, like before my parents would wake up, turn on the PS2 and play FIFA 05. I'm 21 now, and I've made some of my best friends online, and even like being a part of this channel is such a great time. I've had opportunities in esport teams and like with professional clubs and organisations. So yeah, with what I'm about to say, I want to stress that I still love gaming, and yeah, it's brought me some of my best times. I distinctly remember back in 2012 when I was 13 years old, I first asked my parents if I could spend money to buy packs on Ultimate Team. I remember how angry I was when my dad said that it was gambling, and the idea to me at that time was like totally ridiculous, right? I was like, oh, I'm going to be spending 15 quid. I more or less knew what I would get in the packs, even if I knew that getting like my favourite players was a really low chance. So I spent the money, I opened the packs, I got lucky with like a couple players. I think I got like Van der Vaart, and I tried to be positive, even with a slightly underwhelming feeling. And it left me with this sense that, if I could just spend another 15 quid. So yeah, after that, 4 years that followed of spending more and more money on more and more packs, and each time it was again looking for that buzz that you get if you pack someone, if you pack that player. This whole culture is like thousands of YouTube videos on of people opening packs and reactions, and that feeling when you pack that blue card. And as time went on, yeah, I was spending more money and it became more secretive. I didn't want my parents to know. I would sneak into WH Smith's if we were out like shopping or something as a kid, and I'd buy a PlayStation voucher, like one of the physical ones that they'd sell, and I'd come home, I'd enter it in, and I'd like hide it in a book in my room so my parents wouldn't like find it, because basically I didn't want them knowing what I was spending, and because I knew they kind of wouldn't approve. And this was even at a time when it probably it wasn't much money that I was spending. So yeah, back then I didn't think this was sinister at all, because my thought process each time I bought that card was like, I love playing the game. I had nothing else in my life that at that point I'd rather spend my money on. I love playing FIFA, and this time would be the time when I got lucky and I wouldn't need to spend money again because of that. So no damage done, right? And when I was 17, I got my first debit card. So all of a sudden, spending money was like a couple clicks of buttons away from me. It was like instantaneous. There was no need to go and sneak in and buy these physical vouchers or worry that my parents would see. I could spend as much money that I wanted as soon as I wanted to. From 2016 to 2017, so as I was going into year 13 in school, everything changed in my life. In September of that year, my mum got diagnosed with cancer, and I was 17 at the time. I'd known people close to me that had died of cancer. It's like, I'm sure so many people listening will have experienced. And yeah, everything in life changed. Everything just became about waiting until a moment where everything would just be nothing more than a memory. Waiting until the day when my mum's treatment would be over, when I'd have finished my exams, it'd be the summer, and we would appreciate normal life again, like we never thought we would. And I think this is just obviously something that resonates again now with what's going on in the world, waiting for normality. So I was kind of already going through like the worst time in my life with my mum's cancer, but in the months that followed, things happened that it's difficult because I can't speak about what happened now because there's people's privacy that I have to value and I have to protect. But even if I could speak about it, it was a time that I would honestly probably fail to put into words. I think John will know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it was just an absolutely horrific time in the months that followed. Bearing in mind I was already dealing with apparent cancer. And yeah, I've got a real awareness as well that, of course, like I say, this was a really difficult time. Everyone goes through difficult times, like of course they do. I totally understand that. And I appreciate that right now there could be people listening that are going through things that feel even more difficult than what I went through. So I ended up just searching for ways to cope with this time in my life that at that point it just felt so unfair. And this is where we get back to FIFA. So I'd be coming home from school where like only a couple of my close friends knew really any level of what was going on like in my life at home. And the buzz of opening packs that I've talked about, that offered me a way to escape and just to forget and just to feel in some way happy at that point. And gradually the sort of rational sense of moderation and value for money that had been saved for my future, it just began to subside because I felt like I needed the money now to cope, and that in years to come, somehow my future self would look back and he'd understand because, yeah, he'd know what I had been going through. I was spending 30 quid at a time, and then over the course of a few months, I was spending 40 quid at a time, and that turned into 50 quid at a time. And by the point that my card began to block my transactions, I was throwing 80 quid onto the game 4 or 5 times in one night during Team of the Season. And I did it without even a sense, or maybe without a willingness to accept what that was all leading up to. And a few weeks before my A-levels, after days of watching people open packs on YouTube and being on Footbin and the Ultimate Team websites in the day, whilst my parents thought I was upstairs revising, the moment came where one evening the money just ran out. As I say, money that my parents and my grandparents had worked for, that had been given to me as savings for my future. And it's really important to me that I stress that I recognise my responsibility in what happened. Because whatever the context of this situation was in my life, and whether there were or weren't regulations that could have prevented what happened, those decisions to spend the money, they were made by me. I know they're decisions now that I shouldn't have made. They were decisions that were heartbreaking for my parents when they found out and read through the bank statements, that I own those decisions. At the same time, I recognise that the circumstances of the situation, they were extraordinary. I feel that maybe that was a time when I needed protection from the lure of buying packs more than ever. Because you know what? You simply cannot spend like that level of money on what is essentially gambling, and gambling with such high costs and such remote chances of success in any other way if you're under 18. Because I was like 17 at the start of that year, I then turned 18. Like, betting shops and high streets online, they're age protected, with government enforced regulations preventing the exploitation of people with gambling addictions, even if you are over 18. Yeah, I want to quickly talk about some of the facts of when you open FIFA packs. So to buy, for example, a 50k pack, so one of the bigger packs that's out there, it contains 12 rare gold players, and you're spending about £8 when you buy that pack. But there are over 900 rare gold cards in the game, and I wonder how much people actually, when you're in that moment, how much you actually think about this. Because it's not talked about enough that there's 900 rare gold cards in the game, and that's not even talking about the fact that those cards aren't weighted evenly, so the better players are much more rare than the lower end players. And again, that's not even talking about the fact that Team of the Season and all those blue cards, they're even rarer, and that's still not even talking about the fact that if it's a 50k pack, that's a relatively low price per player that you're spending real money on compared to most of the packs that people and kids buy on this game. So for the most desirable cards in the game, like, we're talking about scratch card odds at a price that's often more expensive than like a scratch card. And to anyone out there that uses the argument, this isn't gambling because the items you're buying don't hold monetary value. Yeah, you know what? They might not do, but the value that they hold for all those people that spend money on packs is there for you to see in the $1.49 billion revenue that Ultimate Team made in this financial year. Change is starting to happen, and I know there are bills for loot box gambling in the US, and packs were banned in Belgium, which was, it was a great moment for me. And a lot of people watching as well. I know John's talked about this in other videos. It's just such a crazy thing that Kerry Hopkins from EA told like a parliamentary committee that she didn't have any ethical qualms about loot box gambling and packs in the game because people like surprise toys and surprise mechanics, and she compared them to Kinder Eggs. And I just wish that anyone who ever heard her use that example without really understanding or experiencing the issue could hear my story and hear about a time where this game led me to a point where I was told by a parent that I had broken their heart with the money that I spent. And I think back to what that time was like and how I felt and what I was trying to escape from when I spent everything I had on FIFA packs. And I cannot tell you the responsibility that I feel now to all the kids out there that will go through difficult times, or even if they're not going through difficult times, and all those people that have gone through similar things and still with the shame now, because this issue is not talked about nearly enough. I can tell you that right now. Like, yeah, and before I finish, of course, there are massive issues with the fact that kids can do this. This is open for people that are under 18. There's still a massive, massive problem here for adults that are doing the same thing. I don't want people to forget that even for people that are older, this is still a massive problem. And I guess I'd finish with this, that just please remember before you play that next weekend league that you're not really looking forward to, or before you spend that next £30 on packs to get that blue Team of the Season player, that you do have a choice. I promise you that I have been there and that I understand, but I promise you as well that I left Ultimate Team behind in my life and I am so much happier now.
I have 3 quick questions because I've had you for a while here, Johnny P. You say at a certain point that you want to take responsibility for what you did. Personally, listening, I feel like your story tells us that it isn't really your fault. Like, you are a victim. Why do you feel like you have to take some responsibility for spending all that money when you were going through such a hard time? Because to me, the responsibility falls on EA Sports for not having gambling regulations inputted into their game. Like, their game is gambling. Loot boxes are gambling. You're 17 years old. You're under the UK legal age to gamble. You've gambled. They are the ones providing you that service. It really, for me, you don't need to be apologizing or taking responsibility to anyone, because in my opinion, you're a victim. It's the exact people like you who I want this video to reach and help.
Well, yeah, I think as I tell this story, I am aware that it could. I just don't want it to sound like I am somehow telling this story or blaming EA to kind of somehow not face what I did. Because at the end of the day, I did still spend that money, but I think it's really important that I say that like I own those decisions, because I own the decisions that I made, the mistakes that I made, and I still stand here and I get so angry and so upset when I think about what the reality today still is with everyone that's out there that is doing the same thing without thinking about it or spending too much money on FIFA packs. Yeah. And so I own the decisions that I made, and but even so, I stand here and I still think that that's such an awful issue. Yeah,
I mean, ultimately though, in the same way that alcoholics would drink for a quick buzz, what you've done is you've gone down the gambling route for a coping mechanism to, every time you pack someone good, you get that little bit of endorphins released, you feel good about yourself, it distracts you from the realities of life. And personally, I think you're a victim, and, you spent money that should have been spent on a car, or all of your university spending money that your family had saved up on FIFA packs that are going to be worthless in 3 months from now, which is, just not your fault. But I want to ask you what you would want to see in FIFA. Like, what restrictions would you want to see in FIFA 21 Ultimate Team to stop people like you from doing what you did, or people who might be going through a struggle?
It needs huge change. It needs huge change. Like, either the odds of opening things in packs have to change so much that you're not going to be close to throwing 20 quid on, which is still a lot of money, and being disappointed. Okay, you know what? It's been banned in Belgium for a reason. And you know what? This is so hard to answer, because I just think it neast to end. I don't think you should be allowed to spend money.
18 plus restrictions?
18 plus over, fair enough. 18 plus, at the very least, we need 18 plus restrictions, so that if you're under 18, you cannot spend money on something where you do not know what you're getting when you spend that money.
Gamble aware restrictions, when the fun stops, stop. What about, do you know what it needs? It just needs the same restrictions that it would be given if it was viewed as the gambling that it really is, and the same restrictions the 18 plus. It needs the restrictions that you get in casinos. That's what it needs, because it is gambling, I promise you. My final question is there a certain point that you look back on, and obviously it's a bit of a blurry time and a hard time for you, where you realised you were addicted and you were spending too much money but you couldn't stop? Like, did you ever recognise the problem whilst you were living it out? Or was it only afterwards? Was it a moment maybe where you spoke to your mum, like you had to go and tell her that you spent all this money, and it was like, holy shit? I will remember that moment for the rest of my life. But it was, like I say, it was a constant balance of me thinking my future self will understand, and I kind of hope that one day he will, if I look back and think that I tried to kind of do something about this issue now. But yeah, it was like, there was a point where, like you say, it was probably having to tell my parent, where I had to face what was happening, because I kind of knew, but I pushed it away. It was in the back of my mind. I didn't have online banking or something. I wasn't looking at the statements because I didn't want to. I actually didn't know it had added up to what it added up to. As crazy and as stupid as that sounds now, but that's also an important point. Like, when you're throwing on 30 quid at a time on packs, I thought I'd spent not a good amount. I thought I'd spent hundreds, but as I say, I spent
well,
Maybe like 500 quid or something.
yeah, I was like, well, I spent way too much on this. I spent like 500 quid. That was my honest thought process. And like,
It was actually like 2,700, right?
but that's how easy it is
How
to throw,
slippery of a
throw
slope
money
it
on.
is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, understand, this happens to so many people. Even in the position that I'm in, where I'm fortunate to have like a couple thousand followers, the messages that I get about this issue, I can't even imagine how many times John hears about this issue. In the comments we see on the videos that John's done before, like, as I said, like, I partly make this video for all the people that will want to spend money, but also for all the people that have and still deal with the shame of it. This is not something that's talked about enough. And just remember, you have that choice. And you can walk away. And like I say, I did, and I have been so much happier.
All right, mate, cheers for that. I've been looking for ways to outro this video for a few days, and it's been a bit of a difficult one. It's not something that can be summed up in 1 minute. It's such a deep issue that I could talk about this for 2-3 hours, and maybe one day I will. If you do have an Ultimate Team spending habit, or if you know somebody who might be spending a lot of their money and income on Ultimate Team packs, and you sort of joke about it and you give him a bit of stick, have the thought process to yourself: would you have the same attitude if they were going down to a casino and spending that money? If your 16-year-old mate spends the majority of his earnings on FIFA packs, and you will find it very funny, I would be the same probably at that age. Ask yourself, if he was taking himself off to William Hill or Paddy Power on the high street and wasting 80-90 quid at a time and coming away, would you still find it as acceptable? I think that's the real question here. EA Sports just released Summer Heat promo. Another one after Team of the Season. We knew this would happen. I said this would happen. It's just all about making money, and there'll probably be one more before FIFA 21 comes out as well. Just to get that little squeeze out of your bank account before everything that you've spent on this FIFA title becomes redundant and FIFA 21 comes out and you've just been left with a bunch of cards with no value to them whatsoever. Thank you to Johnny for coming on this video and sharing his story. His link to his Twitter is in the description. If you want to message him, I know he'll be happy to answer any questions you have or help some of you guys out who might be in a similar position to him. DM him, drop him a tweet, he will get back to you. To me, Johnny was in a position of weakness. He was somebody that EA Sports system preys on, right? Kids, obviously under the age of 18, who might have a little bit of money saved up, who love football, put the two together into EA's bank account. They know what they're doing. If this message meant a lot to you and you want to share this video, please do go ahead and do so. Subscribe to the channel. I'm going to keep hitting home on this topic, as well as trying to bring you entertaining content until I see some change in this system, because I do feel like it's totally unethical and it should be illegal. So yeah, stick around if you want to see more of these types of videos. There's really nothing else to say. Thank you for watching.